The job brochure said, routine logistics north of the Arctic Circle. But routine jobs don't offer 30 grand upfront in cash, just for agreeing not to ask questions. I'm not new to strange contracts. I've been a hauler for nearly 15 years. Seen blizzard whiteouts so thick I couldn't see the hood of my cab. Driven across frozen lakes slick as glass. Parked next to rigs that had been left running, but with no sign of the driver inside. Weird stuff happens out here. But this one's different. It started with a woman named Reese. She contacted me directly. No recruiter, no dispatch chain. She had my name, my file, even the name of my old route manager in Arizona. Said I came highly referred for unique conditions. I was between jobs. Bills were stacking up, and my last rig had finally tapped out on the Dalton. So I said yes. She wired me $30,000 within the hour. Along with the deposit came a rules list, typed on a yellow sheet of paper and scanned into the email. I still have that email. If I ever forget the rules, I reread them. Every letter, every space. Because that list is why I'm still alive. Rule 1. The truck must never be turned off after midnight. Once it's running, it has to keep running. Seems simple, right? Wrong. Because where I was headed, north of Prudhoe Bay, up past where the maps cut off and the ground stops pretending to be solid, turning off your engine wasn't just a death sentence. It was an invitation. I know that sounds cryptic, some horror story nonsense, something you'd find reposted on Reddit with a bunch of fake screenshots attached. But I swear to you, if I had shut that truck off after midnight on any of those nights, I wouldn't be telling the story. I met the truck, fully fueled and idling, at a half-abandoned logistics yard outside of Coldfoot. Covered in a blue tarp, the trailer already loaded, sealed tight with industrial locks, 6 of them. Reese handed me the keyring herself, told me not to look under the tarp, not to inspect the trailer, just to hook up and start driving. Then, she handed me the printed version of the rules. Actual paper. Letter-sized. Laminated. Her eyes were tired in the way you only see in ER surgeons and wildland firefighters. I asked her where the cargo was going. She didn't answer, just pointed north. Rule 2. Ignore the figures reflected in your side mirrors. They are not real. Under no circumstance should you brake if they move. On the second night, I saw them. It was 1:40 a.m. Road completely frozen. Temperature somewhere around -35 degrees Fahrenheit. I was on a stretch of road barely wide enough for one rig, with spiraling snow walls on either side, like a bobsled track. And that's when the reflections began showing up. The mirrors never lie until they do. They were behind me at first, shapes, people-shaped, shuffling at the edge of the road, hugging the snow drifts, matching my speed. I looked in the mirrors, shoulders, heads, swaying as though their feet barely touched the ground. But when I looked directly out of the window, there was nothing there. Just white. They're only in the mirrors. At first, I slowed instinctively. Just a bit. Some old pedestrian reflex from city driving kicked in. That was a mistake. They got closer in the mirrors. And closer. When one of them tapped the steel of my back fender, I swear I heard the knuckle hit metal. I nearly slammed the brakes. But I remembered the rule. Don't brake. I floored it. Instead, the wheels spun uselessly for 10 heart-pounding seconds until I finally got traction. The shapes flickered, blurred, and then vanished as the rig roared forward. My hands didn't stop shaking until dawn. Rule 3. Do not take the radio off channel 12. Not ever. Not even if an emergency broadcast cuts in. Nobody uses channel 12. It's a deadline in most rigs. Out in the oil patch, truckers usually default to 19 or 21 for chatter. But Reese had made herself very clear. Channel 12 only. There was even a sticker on the console with the rule written in block letters. The first few hours, I heard nothing. Just idle snow hiss and empty static. Then one night, out past Attigan Pass, it flickered alive. Are you out there? Repeat. This is Cutter 7. I need assistance. Any frequency. Please respond. Coordinates 83 degrees north by... The voice sounded real, desperate and familiar. The name? Cutter 7? That was a driver who went missing last year. I'd read about it on an industry forum. A veteran hauler who vanished somewhere past the Brooks Range. The pictures showed a bearded guy in his early 40s. I never met him in person, but the voice coming out of my dash matched his age, his tone, everything. Help me, damn it! Any breaker, please, for God's sake! I reached for the dial instinctively, because that's what humans do. We help. And that's when Rule 3 hit me like a slap. I jerked my hand back. The voice changed as soon as I hesitated. Mid-scream, it stopped, then laughed. Not a chuckle. A little girl's voice. And it giggled like it knew me. Close one, driver. Then static again. Rule 4. Between mile marker 204 and 220. Keep both hands on the wheel. If you remove either hand, he will take the other. That stretch, 204 through 220, is a straight line cut through what used to be a native burial ground. Locals don't even snowmobile through there. It's too quiet. No wind, no echo. Just a hollow kind of silence that sits in your chest. I listened to the rule. Hands on, locked elbow to elbow, 10 and 2, like a driver's aid instructor was sitting next to me. After a few miles, I started to scoff. I mean, it's a stretch of highway. What's the harm? But then, mile marker 215, I sneezed. Instinctively reached up with my right hand to grab a paper towel from the dash. My left hand still on the wheel. It felt like grabbing a spark plug mid-fire. Pain lanced through my wrist. I yanked it back, peeled off my glove. The tip of my pinky, on the hand still gripping the wheel, was blue. I mean, frostbitten blue. A perfect little cold burn, shaped like a fingerprint. I didn't take my hands off again. Not until I passed mile 220. And not without checking the markers 3 times to be sure. Rule 5. Whispered singing is harmless. Humming is not. I first heard the singing on night 4. I'd pulled into a makeshift rest stop. A clearing just wide enough to let another rig pass. The engine was running, as per Rule 1. I was in my sleeper cab, resting my eyes, when I felt the air change, still. Heavy, like the kind before a thunderclap. That's when the singing started. Soft, ethereal, too pretty for a place like this. It came from outside the cab. I didn't move, didn't breathe. It lasted maybe 10 minutes. A lilted woman's voice, echoing like wind across a frozen lake. She didn't approach, didn't knock. Eventually, it stopped, and the stillness returned to normal. But I remembered something Reese wrote on the paper. It's okay if she sings. If she hums, do not respond. Why? I don't want to know. But so far she hasn't hummed. Rule 6. If you see someone standing in the middle of the road, check your clock. If it's between 3:33 a.m. and 3:43 a.m., do not stop, no matter what. On my 6th night, somewhere along the runaway trail beyond Galbraith Lake, the sky was pitch black. Not the kind of black you get in the city. I mean pure darkness. No stars. No moon. Even the snow around the headlights absorbed the light instead of reflecting it. At 3:39 a.m., I saw him. The road curved gently to the left, barely a bend, and then it straightened. And in that straightaway, about 200 yards ahead, a man stood in the dead center of the road. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like 1980s snow gear. Big shoulders, red jacket, blue pants. He didn't wave, didn't move, just watched. At first, my foot hovered over the brake. Reflex. I thought it might be another trucker in trouble, someone who'd wandered too far during a routine maintenance stop. Then, something felt wrong. Off. I checked my digital clock. 3:39 a.m. I floored the accelerator. I swear, as I passed him, the engine groaned. Not from cold, like it was protesting something older, deeper, like pressing against an ancient weight. I didn't look at his face. I wanted to. God, I wanted to so bad. But I kept my focus dead ahead, steering straight, eyes forward. If I had tried to stop instead, I think the snow would have swallowed me. Rule 7. You will receive a call from a withheld number every second night. If the caller asks for Sarah, hang up. Immediately. Small detail. My sister's name is Sarah. She died when I was 17. Car crash. Never properly mourned. Never properly handled. So imagine me, halfway through night 8, driving through ice fog, so thick I couldn't make out my own hood ornament, when the cell phone mounted on my dash suddenly lit up. No ringtone, just the screen. Unknown number. Most service doesn't even reach this far. I'd had 0 bars for the past 100 miles. I answered without thinking, because fear does that. You look for familiarity, for connection. Even a spam call feels human when you're buried in nowhere. At first, the line was silent, then static, like it was buffering a voice 2 decades old. Then softly, "Is Sarah there?" It wasn't just the line. It was her voice. There was a long pause. A horrible gap in time where I felt my mouth open on its own. The words formed in my throat. "This is her bro." Rule 7. I slammed the phone shut and tossed it into the passenger footwell. I heard the phone crying for the next hour. Not ringing, not talking, crying. Rule 8. There is a gas station at mile 301. It's not real. Don't stop unless you want to stay unreal too. Here's the thing. Mile 301 comes after your last planned refuel up north. It's placed just far enough beyond Coldfoot that your instinct says, maybe I can top off here, make it back without having to turn back around. Especially if you're new to the route. But I knew. They warned me. Still, when I saw it, lit up like a Vegas strip in the empty deadness of night, every inch of me wanted to pull in. My fuel gauge sat just below a quarter. I knew the needle would drop faster as the grade climbed. The canopy lights flickered in a friendly pattern. Digital prices looked pretty normal. $5.29 a gallon. There were tire tracks from other rigs veering into the lot. Signs that others had stopped, but not signs that they'd left. The building was perfectly average. Bright. Front windows fogged with warmth on the inside. One of those spinning soda displays lit up by buzzing neon. A warm red sign blinked in cursive. Hot coffee, clean restrooms all night. A man stood at the pump. At least he looked like a man. Until I spotted the mirror glass glasses. They didn't reflect me, They reflected the gas station again, like he was facing backward in time. I didn't stop, didn't look again. I floored it and watched the gas station fade in the rear view, slower than it should have. Rule 9. On the morning of the 5th day, your back will itch above the left shoulder blade. Under no circumstances should you scratch it directly. This rule terrified me for reasons I still don't understand. Day 5. It happened. Bang on. 4:30 a.m. I'd just gotten off a rough patch of elevation, and my eyes were bloodshot from no sleep. The itch started small, a tingle. But by the time I reached a snow-cleared pull-off, it felt like ants were tunneling under my skin. You ever feel a soul-deep urge, that clawing need to act on something your body swears you need to? It was like that. But instead of scratching, I grabbed a wrench from under the seat, the dull reverse end, and used it to press against the itch through 3 layers of clothing. Shirt, hoodie, jacket. The pressure helped, almost chased it off for maybe 2 minutes. Then a scent filled the cab. Like wet dirt and firewood soaked in syrup, I looked at my side mirror. The man from mile 301 was walking toward my cab through the snow. He was too far from the last stop, farther than walking distance, too fast for trudging. His glasses reflected me this time, just my open mouth, repeating one word over and over. Closer, closer, closer. I hit the gas, screeched out onto the frost-lined road, ignoring everything from my fuel gauge to the shaking in my hands. Don't scratch it, not directly, because something lives there, maybe always has. Rule 10, Rule 10. The last thing you'll see before the trip ends is a white elk. If it faces you, you made it. If it turns away, follow it. Final leg. I was near the end of the marked coordinates Reese had given me. When the mountains thinned again and the horizon opened into a valley of bare ice flats, I saw her. The elk. Snow white. Antlers like small trees against the aurora-drained sky. She stood in my headlights, majestic but weather-worn. Her eyes locked with mine, calm, knowing. I stared, wondering if I'd hallucinated her. She nodded, flicked her ears, and then turned away from the road. She began to walk. I didn't hesitate. I turned the wheel and followed. Not off-road, not quite. Beneath my tires, the frozen ground felt prepared, almost as if this path, this moment, had happened before. She led me for 3 miles, then stopped, faced me, lowered her head, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. No sound, no flicker, gone. Ahead of me, nestled in a crevice of ice, was a red-lit docking station surrounded by pinpricks of warm light and low mounds of snow-covered crates collected from years of strange hauls. The delivery point. A man waved me toward the bay. He wore oil gear and no face protection despite the -40 temperatures. When I rolled down my window, he just nodded. Right on time. He opened my trailer, looked inside, said nothing, then slapped the side of the rig and motioned towards a pacing bay heater. I didn't ask questions, didn't want to know what I'd been hauling, didn't want to look behind me until I was 30 miles out. Back into livable reality. And even then, I never checked that trailer. I don't run that route anymore. I did it once. That was enough. Some men run it twice. I've met 3 drivers who claim 20 runs up past mile 301. Older men, eyes like glass marbles. One of them said something that still keeps me awake. It ain't the job that changes you, it's the rules. The longer you follow them, the less they feel like rules. They feel like memories, or maybe instincts. I sleep close to my truck still, engine running, even when I don't need to, because I have heard the faint sound of whispering some nights, close to 3:33 a.m. And when I check my phone, the screen says, unknown number, and it's still asking for Sarah. I didn't think I'd ever go back. But people like me don't get to say no forever. 3 months after the delivery, I got another email. Same sender. No name this time, just a subject line. Encore attached. A single image. The laminated list of rules. But this version, it had 13. 3 new rules I'd never seen before. Written in fresh yellow ink where the old 10 had ended. My hands went cold just looking at it. Not fear. Something older than fear. Like my skin recognized something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. A sense memory from a place I'd never been, but somehow remembered. I didn't reply to the email. I tried deleting it. It came back the next morning, this time printed and slid under my motel door. On yellowing parchment that smelled faintly of frozen dirt and diesel. No footprint trail, no knock. Just a note, penned across the bottom. You followed the rules once, now the rules will follow you. So I went back. I told myself it was just a delivery. Lied to myself about needing the cash. Rationalized it like veterans do before re-enlisting. One more run, just in and out. This time the truck was dropped for me in a gravel quarry 5 miles outside of Dead Horse. No human contact. The keys were already in the ignition. No envelope, no fuel logs. Just the rules laminated to the dash again. The original 10 and the new 3. The newer ones weren't numbered like the others. They weren't even on the same paper stock. They were written in uneven print, not typed, and the letters bled slightly on the edges. like they'd been printed in something organic. Which brings me to the 11th rule, addendum. If you dream while you drive, observe what follows you in the mirror. If it looks like you, brake gently. If it doesn't, accelerate. Use your name as a weapon. I wasn't sure what that meant until 2 nights in. You can only white-knuckle it through so many 20-hour hauls before micro-dreams start happening. Most truckers know this. You're awake, but not fully. The line between thought and sleep blurs until you're driving inside your own head. I remember the moment it hit me. The CB went dead silent. Not quiet, but empty. Like someone had shut off all sound and replaced it with vacuum. Then I felt a presence behind me. Not behind in the cab, behind the rig. I checked the mirror. My truck was there, but something else was tailing it. A copy. Same trailer. Same frost-glazed steel. But the cab was wrong. Too smooth. Reflections warped, no headlights, no driver. I looked closer. It was me in the driver's seat, but without a face. A head, hair, body, jacket like mine, but no eyes, no expression. Just a smooth plane of skin where a face should be. Rule 11. If it looks like you, but doesn't look right, accelerate. I whispered my name. Calvin Knox. The moment I said it, my doppelganger's hand slammed against the inside of its window. No sound. Just force, trying to break through. I yelled it again. Calvin Knox! And the presence behind me cracked. Not visually. I felt it rupture, like a failed transmission or snapped cable, and then gone. No reflection, no phantom rig, only the sound of my tires humming through the snow like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep again for the next 30 hours. Addendum. Avoid engine humming at 555 Hz. If you hear it from underneath the cab, you're being tuned. The day after that, the humming began. I wouldn't have noticed it if it wasn't so precise. Truck engines groan, rattle, and whine all the time. That's normal, especially out here, where coal turns bolts brittle and roads are more ambition than infrastructure. But this hum, it sounded like a cello made out of wire. Deep, beautiful, structured. I only knew it was 550 Hz because of Reese. Years ago, she told me about biofrequencies, how certain tones have physiological effects on humans. 528 for healing, 440 for clarity. But 555? That was chaos. Disassembly. I pulled over, crawled out with my gloves and flashlight to inspect the axles. And I swear to God, there was writing underneath the cab. Filigree scrapings worked into the metal. Not recent. Patterned. Intentional. It wasn't English. It wasn't any alphabet, but the shape of it made my bones ache, like my ligaments were being retuned, bent towards some kind of internal choreography not meant for human motion. I didn't speak, didn't breathe, climbed back into the cab, turned off all audio, radio, CB, even my damn Bluetooth playback, and drove until sunlight hit the skyline like a rescue flare. The humming stopped. The writing remained. Addendum. Delivering the cargo the second time won't satisfy the king. It never does. But somebody has to try. There it is, buried in those 13 rules. The full context I wasn't given the first time. It wasn't about one delivery or codes of conduct. This was a ritual, a performance, a cosmological rehearsal that runs endlessly, cycling each protagonist through their own overwritten mythology until they break or improvise. You follow the rules until something inside you clicks. And suddenly, the rules feel less like instructions and more like lines from a script. And if you forget which ones are yours, you get rewritten. I think that's what happened to the guy I saw on day 4. Another trucker, parked at an intersection somewhere north of the river flats. Nowhere on any map. He leaned against a Kenworth W900 that looked like a cousin of mine. Same paint scheme, same dent low on the passenger side. Except he wasn't blinking, not breathing either. Just smiling, with pink cracks all around his lips. Like he'd been holding the smile too long and the flesh had started to split. I asked if he needed help. He didn't respond, just reached into his jacket, same jacket as mine, and handed me a piece of parchment. New rule, written in blue ink this time. Don't break character. The audience is always watching. And under it, a signature. Calvin Knox, my name. I burned the parchment. I watched my own name curl in the flames, the letters turning grey, like they were ashamed of what they had been part of. For a minute, I thought it might be over. Thought burning my name would free me from the loop, would erase the role I'd been cast into. But you don't burn your script in Act 2 and expect the curtain to fall. The show has to end. And sometimes it ends with you. That night I drove until I couldn't remember where I'd started from. Not just in terms of miles, but in terms of memory. There are gaps. Moments when my hands remembered the wheel, but my mind couldn't place the last few hours. Just the humming. Not from the engine this time, from the radio. Channel 12 never used to hum. It used to stay dead unless something made it speak. But now, it hummed in tune with me, my thoughts. Every time I doubted my route, it pulsed. Every time I thought about Reese, It hissed her name in a tone just low enough to slip beneath conscious hearing. I changed the station. Just once. A whisper bled through. You know how this ends, Calvin. You read the last line. I don't remember reading any last lines. But I felt a pressure in my chest then. A weight like gravity, pulling inward, collapsing around the space where free will should have been. And I saw them again. Figures. In the snow. But this time, on the road ahead. Blocking it, dozens of them. All tall. All dressed like truckers from different eras. 70s coats, 90s trucker hats. One even wore a vintage UPS uniform. But his eyes were missing. Just wax where sockets should be. They were me, or versions of me. I stopped the truck, on purpose. This time, not from fear, but from recognition. This was the final rule. Not one written in ink, not one laminated to the dash, but the one stitched into the ritual itself. Do not forget who you were before you took the wheel. Because if you do, you stay here. You become one of the watchers, or one of the actors, or worse, the script itself. I stepped out into the cold. It didn't burn me this time, didn't steal my breath. It welcomed me, like a stagehand taking your coat before the show begins. The figures slowly parted, and standing beyond them, between me and the dark curve of the empty highway, was the white elk. Blood on its antlers, bones tangled in its fur like ornaments. It looked back once, and it didn't face me. It turned away and walked into the snow, into the dark. Without thinking, I followed.